Evening, everyone. It's good to see everybody. My name is Brad. I am a life coach, and I will be here tonight talking to a very special individual. Her name is Nikki, and she works largely with people that have suffered from religious trauma. And so I am excited to have her join us. Once again, if you are not following her or do not know much about her, her page is awesome. And she does multiple podcasts, amongst other things, and so I think it would be great benefit for you to check out her page. She will be joining us in just a second. Go ahead and get started. So I'm excited to have her on here. I see some of my favorite people are showing up. Thank you guys for showing up. Hi, Nikki.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Just gonna adjust this a little bit. There we go.
I'm honored to have you on here tonight. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for inviting me. We've been chatting here and there, and I'm just excited to be here tonight.
Yeah,
And
same
you
here.
brought your cigar.
So, have you had a good day?
Somewhat. I'm okay. It's almost Friday, so I'm
Oh, I
happy about
know.
that.
I totally know that feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Friday was never going to get here this week for some reason, for me, anyways. It seemed
Yes. Yes.
right. So, well, I usually the way I kick this off is obviously I introduce myself a little bit, and I've done that. I feel like the majority of people that log on know me, but just in case, my name is Brad. I'm a life coach. I help people that are deconstructing their faith. And yes, her hair is gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I love it. So and I help people at the beginning, mid, end of their deconstruction, help reaching new goals, finding their true self, and what's after it. And so, with that being said, I really am excited about having Nikki here. So, Nikki, would you mind taking a moment and just introducing yourself?
No problem. You sure
Awesome.
you have an hour, right? How long you have?
It's all you. It's totally all you.
Okay, so my name is Nikki G. And I hail from a lot of narcissistic relationships, narcissistic family dynamics, and being programmed in that environment kind of led me to be attracted to and attracted by narcissistic type of people, from friendships to employers. The one thing that I did not connect with was narcissistic romantic partners. I think the universe was just sparing me. But because I grew up in an environment where it was heavily religious, that combo of connecting with toxic type of people, as well as that religious addiction, kind of drove me to find myself into multiple different cults in my journey. So it was one cult after another cult after another cult. So we got about 5 cults on my journey. And so I've been out of my last cult almost about 7 years and some change. And after I left that one, I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. Yes, these people have been abusing me. I was a mess. I was a wreck. I lost a lot of community and things of that nature. But I started to say, okay, not that I did this. This is not my fault, but I'm the common denominator. I'm tired. I am tired of going from one cult to another and one toxic relationship to another. I have to focus on myself. So, I mean, it was a great time because I lost basically a lot of my friends and community. And I just kind of went deep into finding myself, dealing with a lot of the things and the things that were certain subtleties that drew me to these type of people. Why was I attracted to narcissistic people? Why was I attracted to cultic type of leaders? What was it about these communities that I found myself needing to run into? And so after doing a lot of that deep search, it was a lot of tears, a lot of pain. I did go to some therapy, but at the time, a lot of therapists, as we well know, are not that well versed in occultic communities or religious trauma. We're still trying to get the word religious trauma syndrome out there, and thanks to the work of Marlene Walnell that's doing it. But I had to do the work myself. So I went to the therapy for the complex PTSD that I was dealing with, and that helped. And Can you still hear me? Because I
I
was okay. It
you're
was
all
okay. It was me and my computer and my journal and my quiet time and a lot of tears and a lot of looking within. And there was a lot of shame in the beginning, but after a while, I started to realize this was not my fault. This was a journey that I came upon, and I'm going to take off all of this stuff eventually and be able to fly. And so I did it personally for me. I didn't find myself wanting to do this work at first, but eventually I did, and now here I am.
all right. All right. How bad are we breaking up? Somebody said we were breaking up a bit. Is it her that's breaking up or myself?
I can hear you now. It was buffering a little bit, but it's not anymore on my end.
Okay. All right. I'm not buffering on my end either. So we'll just keep an eye on it. But
Okay.
um, uh, our comments already are starting to fly in for you.
Okay.
Okay, as you can see. Are you able to say which cults you were part of?
I'd rather not do that right now,
Fair.
but if you DM me, we can chat about it. But I don't want to do that publicly. Again, people that actually do that, I honor the people that do that, because there needs to be a place and voice for the injustice that a lot of survivors have gone through. But that's just not something I do publicly. But you can DM me, we can have a chat.
Okay. Uh,
Hmm.
so it said your journey sounds so familiar, similar to mine. Oh, hey, it's Melissa said that.
Hmm.
Formalistic says hi, friends. Um, uh, okay, so we said it was said that we both cleared up, so it's good now. Okay,
Okay, great, great, great.
we'll keep tabs. Let us know if it breaks up at all. All right, so obviously that's that's pretty much a traumatic background, right? I guess if there is ever a definition of trauma, that would be it. Um, that being the case, what has what was your religious background like? Like, how did you get into the a certain type of religion or any religion?
Well, being an African American woman, a lot of times being in Christianity is just something that's passed down. And, I won't go fully into that now, but generationally, a lot of people are kind of locked in a certain path. And then culturally, you're kind of locked in a certain path. And there's an expectation that you will be in a certain religion. And so that path was already set for me, but because of just different emotional neglect areas, other areas of neglect, that combination and the gaslighting and the programming kind of led me to find a journey. I mean, I got saved at the age of 19, and it's very interesting how I got saved. I was raised in a church all my life, but during my teenage years, I was just all over the place. And it was to the point people said, no, you needed to slow down because you were like a hot tamale. But the weird way that I got saved was not in somebody's altar call or anything like that. I started reading books about the New World Order and conspiracy theories and what was coming in the future. And my nervous system was already primed to want to find safety like ASAP. So in my mind, I'm reading all this material and I'm like, well, how do we stop this? If all this is going to come, if all this apocalyptic things are going to occur, how do we stop this? And a lot of the books kept referencing certain books in the Bible and the Old Testament, Revelations, things of that nature. So I'm up for like weeks, like in a vortex, in a rabbit hole, studying all this. And then I just came to the conclusion where I'm like, well, the only way I can be safe is if I give my life to Christ. And so at 19, I did that in my basement that I was staying in at the time. But that started the foundation of my relationship with God, with Christ, with Christianity. It was fear based. It was, I need someone to save me and protect me. It wasn't from a place of, oh, I love and he loves. And eventually I got there. But in the beginning, it was just survival of the fittest. You're the way to survive. Okay, let's go with you. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
comment or question came in says you mentioned earlier you had a narcissistic family. Do you still speak with them?
Yes, I do. I am low contact. The dynamics. there's a spectrum of what a narcissistic family looks like, the particular vibe of what that looks like. I know there's some people where they had to move away from their family of origin because it was so toxic, so chaotic. There are various reasons that I won't discuss right now as to why I'm still low contact, but I don't live in the same state or anything like that. And they're on their elderly side right now. So things are a little bit different. But in childhood, in the beginning, and they would probably see it differently. Um, in childhood, there was a lot of emotional neglect, a lot of gaslighting, manipulating, things of that nature, which basically was a picture or a container that was created that when I found myself in these cults, it felt familiar. Having an authority figure that would gaslight me, manipulate my reality. If I would confront and bring something to the table, distorting that, making me look like it was my fault, I knew that feeling, whether I agree with it or not. So it was very easy to just go along with it because that's what I came out of.
Gotcha. It's interesting because we kind of jumped ahead and already answered question number 3 for you and I, which is
It's okay.
you suffer any religious trauma or know someone who experienced religious trauma? You being obviously have suffered from religious trauma. Have you had a close friends or seen it happen to them?
Oh yes, I've walked alongside of many people who have gone through what I've gone through. I have friends to this day that have not processed a lot of what they came out of. It's been, years, and no judgment to them, but a lot of people that come out of religious trauma, I'm finding just the first part of helping clients and helping survivors is actually showing them that they were abused in a religious community or context. A lot of them don't see it that way. And for those of you, I didn't say this in the beginning. I have a club on Clubhouse called Spiritual Abuse and Cults, and we talk a lot of these type of conversations. And recently, what's been coming up has been people calling it church hurt.
Mm.
Oh, that's just church hurt, so I can endure it, I can bear it. That's just church hurt, so I don't really like them anymore. I just go to move to another church, and you keep getting church hurt, and I'm like, it's actually abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so people educating survivors that they've actually been through it is very important. But back to your question, a lot of my friends, they're still dealing with a lot of the cognitive dissonance. They're still dealing with uh, the silence. They've been muzzled so long in the system that even when they're out, that residue of being quiet, don't ask, don't tell, don't share what you've been through, it's hard to break. Even telling their own stories of shame and pain and abuse. So getting the survivors to kind of remove that muzzle so they can feel free to express themselves. But church hurt and church abuse and religious abuse is two totally different things. Church hurt is he parked in my parking lot spot. He didn't speak to me when I came in. I'm upset. He got the position to sing in the choir. I didn't. That's not abuse. Abuse keeps you up at night. Abuse makes you feel that something's wrong with you. Abuse makes you feel shame and guilt and fear. Abuse makes you feel like when you pull up to the parking lot of the religious community, you have palpitations, you're afraid, you feel it in your body. That's not church hurt.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Said down in the comments, oh goodness, church hurt is so dismissive.
It
Uh,
is. It is.
Great. So for people that have just kind of logged on and are going to be watching this later, would you do me a favor and kind of explain what does religious trauma look like?
Well, there's various definitions. I'll just be Nikki and just kind of paint the picture.
Way.
You know, a lot of it is, the misuse of power, and usually by some form of authority figure, some leadership, and enablers. We focus a lot on the leaders, we focus a lot on the system, but we forget the enablers that work with the leadership to actually continue and perpetuate trauma and abuse to survivors. There's a lot of fear and shame that the survivor actually feels. Like I said, you're afraid to go to church now. When you read your Bible, you feel like you're not good enough. You feel like God doesn't like you anymore. There's a lot of in the system or in, whatever church you were going to, and there was a lot of religious trauma. Usually the leader uses scriptures and twist them and manipulate them and pervert them. One of the ones I got a lot in the last couple of cults I was in, it was the theme around surrendering and picking up your cross and denying yourself for Christ. So the higher an anointing you want it to go in God, the closer in proximity you want it to be to God, the more you have to surrender, even if it didn't make sense, even if you didn't agree. And what that does psychologically to a survivor, it starts to break down their walls, it starts to disintegrate their will, and their autonomy and their power, their personal power starts to erode, and they don't feel like they're themselves. And so now you're confused. The other part is, the leaders like to spiritually bypass a lot of things that are brought up, certain issues that are needed to be confronted. They bypass all of that, bypass being accountable and responsible, and they find some weakness with you and try to flip it and say, well, maybe if you were a little bit more forgiving, you wouldn't see it that way. Or maybe if you surrendered more to God, stepped up your prayer life, throw a little fasting in there, more Bible study, drink
Yeah.
that type of soup, then you'll be fine. And you won't see it that way because we've prayed and God didn't tell us that there was abusive practices here. He lives here. Why would that coincide? So then you start feeling crazy. You start feeling confused. You're struggling between this doesn't feel right. This is supposed to be love, but there's toxicity. Does love equal abuse? Now, that's not something that's conscious, but this is what ruminates in the subconscious a lot for people who are in religious trauma systems or relationships, because it's not just the community. This happens in marriages. This happens with children whose parents are exhibiting a lot of these behaviors. And the children, the teenagers feel like they have no voice. So it's not just within the leadership. Anyone who takes spirituality or religious texts, experiences, and they take that power and they lord it over another person to get them to do their desire, so to speak, that actually is starts to traumatize the person. There's not a lot of freedom to speak, so there's a code of silence that's in a lot of these relationships in these communities. There's an exaggeration of a lot of spiritual practices. So God told me that you should go such and such, and you shouldn't be with that particular person. This is the leaders. I had a dream that God told me to tell you that you shouldn't take that career path that you've been thinking on. The devil is on the other side of that career path. So you need to pray and fast before you think about taking that position. And there's people I know personally, marriages have been destroyed, families have been separated because they listened to what the leader said, and the leader props themselves up as God's BFF. So if God is saying it and the leader is saying it, then it must be true. So the individual feels very confused, very shameful, very disconnected from God, from themselves, and the people around them.
Okay. First of all, love the Nikki way. All right.
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, but that was awesome. Just outstanding. Well done. That's great. Had a couple comments while you were talking.
Sure.
Outside of therapy, what would you recommend to people who are leaving that type of religious background to break free from the mindset of seeking restrictive cult-like religions?
I mean, I'm going to repeat it again. It may sound redundant, but it's so true. The first thing is you have to acknowledge that this is what you've been through and that you are, in fact, a religious trauma survivor or spiritual abuse survivor. I know that seems like, well, hello. No. For a lot of people, there's so much shame, even voicing that out, even to themselves, that as long as they're stuck in that cognitive dissonance, it's hard to move forward. Now, acknowledging it and accepting that it happens does not mean that this will be your reality for the rest of your life. Yes,
Yeah.
to say, yeah, I've been through it. Yes, that's part of your life story.
Hmm.
But you're not stuck to that life story. You can move forward. But if people don't acknowledge it,
Hmm.
that it happened, it's going to be hard to move forward. So, really, and understanding that what that means is religious trauma survivor, that means you've been psychologically shot. Okay. You probably have a lot of spiritual internal bleeding and you don't even know it. There are organs that have been chiseled and shredded by the gaslighting, by the manipulation, by the twisting of the scriptures. And if you just say, I'm out of it, but not work on getting it out of you, you're walking around with internal bleeding metaphorically and you don't know it.
Hmm.
There is no spiritual homeostasis. There's no physical homeostasis. The other thing is understanding that to tackle this beast of a thing, that going spiritual first and only is not the answer. You can touch that, and that's up to each person's individual path, but the trauma has affected your body. It's affected your perspective about yourself, about others. It's affected you physiologically. It's affected your nervous system. Most religious trauma survivors' nervous systems are very dysregulated. And that's not something to feel shame or judgment. It is part of what happened to us. I heard a young lady in one of the rooms she shared, she said she went to go with a friend to do some outreach work. And this particular friend was still, I think, a part of a church she used to frequent, but she does not touch it anymore because some of these things existed. The friend had to go by the church to get materials so they could go to the outreach. She was in the car. They pulled up and she said her body was shaking.
Hmm.
And she knew that, oh my gosh, this is trauma that's still in me. And you would think, why are you shaking? You've been gone. Because the fear of, I'm not safe. I'm not safe. The nervous system is sending out those alerts. And we have to honor, our bodies and understand what we've been through. The other thing is, again, I know it's probably like, well, duh, getting away from the source of abuse. If it was someone who was sexually abused or physically abused, we would know to say, get away from the abuse, get away from the fire, get away from the gunshots. But I know that that is a hard thing to process for a lot of people who are leaving.
Hmm.
But after you come out, it's almost as if your system starts to recalibrate. I say, leaving and coming out, the smelling salt starts to hit you. The spell starts to break off, and things you didn't see before when you were under the group think dynamic or under those systems, you start to actually pay attention to. So just being out of it physically does something for you physically, psychologically, and the ability to start putting pieces of the puzzle together.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
educating yourself. That helped me a whole lot. I remember, 7 years ago, found a guy named Stephen Hassan. I love his work, freedomofthemind .org or .com. He came up with the BITE model, behavior control, information control, thought control, emotional control about what happens in these types of systems. I educated myself. I looked at what it was to be in a narcissistic system. I looked at what it was to come out of a cult, started learning about religious trauma systems so I could understand what I went through.
Hmm.
These are just some top three things you have to do. And of course, as you probably would say, I understand that a lot of people like, I don't want a guide, I don't want a coach, I don't want a therapist. And you know what? We honor that, especially our type of clients when you are ready. But I would encourage people, don't let 5 years, 6 years, 7 years go by before you start processing these things. Because remember, you've been psychologically shot, emotionally shot, physically, almost metaphorically shot. And having someone who's been there, who can connect with you, can attune with you, can honor your story, can validate your experience is very, very important. Not just for you to be able to have voice, but it's important to your nervous system. Your nervous system needs to hear it's not your fault. I've been there too. I understand. Don't feel shame for that. Just easy comments like that can cause someone to cry because for some people, they've never heard it in their lives, even before the cold. So I'll pause right there.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so we had a lot of things flying in, obviously, when you were talking. First of all, published measures says the enablers are horrible. And obviously, I would agree with that's one of the major problems. Comments are so true. I'm going to butcher this, and so I apologize. Shamik.
Tamika.
Okay, Shamika. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm a spiritual abuse survivor as well, which is I'm sorry you went through that, but you are a survivor. You got Philip says, "Hey, Nikki." Obviously, you've got holy cow. The way you describe things is phenomenal. Of course, it is. She's amazing. Uh, and then she says, "Okay, Nikki, I want to be you when I." You, but yeah, that's awesome. I think what the way you explain things and the way you break it down really helps us to grasp in more simplistic terminology, because there's a lot of terminology out there, and there are a lot of people that say different different things, and I feel like everybody's kind of looking for a new way to say it or some way to sugarcoat it or
Uh-huh.
whatever. It doesn't need to be, right? I mean,
Right, right.
and so I appreciate the way in which you come at it and what you say. So it leads me to my next question.
Okay.
Is it the religion or the religious structure that seems to be allowing for this spiritual abuse and religious trauma to go unnoticed?
Okay. Me personally, Nikki G, as the place I am at in my life presently, I believe it's both. Um, I believe it's both, and I feel like they pull off of one another, each other. The leaders find the text and find ways to take the text to pervert it and manipulate it, to gaslight, to abuse, to get people to do what they want to do. Then within that system, you have the enablers, like we talked about earlier, who actually want to be in close proximity to these leaders who are doing these things. So even if it's not in their nature to do what the leaders are doing, to survive in the system, to be the favorite in the system, to stay close in proximity, to go up the ranks, they will actually perpetuate a lot of the abusive tactics that the leaders do. The people that come in, and this again, this is not about fault, this is just about susceptibility and vulnerability. A lot of times people, and it's synonymous, religious trauma, cults, narcissism, to me they're all in the same bowl. So a lot of people that find themselves in cults or high demand groups where a lot of religious trauma is happening, they don't join it. No one joins these type of places. No one joins a relationship with a narcissist. You don't know what you're coming into. But a lot of times people come in with certain vulnerabilities. It could be a loss of a loved one and there's a lot of grief. It could be, I want to improve in my relationship with God. I want to learn more about spiritual things. I would like to be a part of community. A lot of people are lonely. It's 2022. It's a lot of COVID, and disconnection going on. I want to be in community. So, and then there's some people, there are codependent proclivities we have within us. And so being in a community, attaching to certain leadership who actually, and that's something I didn't talk about earlier, they actually kind of endorse codependency. They create this type of atmosphere where you start to believe if you're not connected to this leader, who's going to guide you? Who's going to help you? And especially if you have ministries that are very end time orientated, which a
Yeah.
lot of the cults I came out of was very end time. So you take that fear of what's going to happen, you take people's ignorance of how to handle it or lack thereof. You take a leader who sets himself up as to be one, who is next to God's ear, two, can lead you and guide you to prepare for the end times and things of that nature, and three, you feel inferior, so you give your power away. You connect to this leader, and now this is your source of guidance. And so that type of system is basically will abuse, will traumatize, will take away people's autonomy, take away people's personal choice and power. But again, it's not just the leaders, it's not just the system, it's not just the people, it's not just how the text is interpreted, it's all of that mixed together. And um I have a whole lot more thoughts, but maybe Brad and I could talk about that.
No, right. Uh, hey, it's Melissa said, religious abuse survivor here. How do people have such positive experiences in these groups? How can people have such extremely different experiences?
Well, religious trauma, spiritual abuse, it's on a spectrum, like most things. So I've heard people say, I don't feel like I've been through spiritual abuse because only this happened or only that happened. And I hear other people's stories, and yeah, I can say that happened to them. That didn't happen to me. So you have some communities where it's very, there are some tendencies there, but it's not as malignant or acute like it would be in just straight up cults. So there is definitely a spectrum on what it looks like. As far as the differences that people experience, a lot of times the closer you are to the leader, the more traumatized, the more abuse you incur. The further away that you are from the epicenter of the community, the less traumatized you have. You may feel or be. You may still get some, especially if it's a cultic system. I remember the last cult I was in, and that very question, Melissa, that you're asking, I sat with for years. Like, how is it that we all went to the same place and I'm a wreck and these people just are like, oh, we'll find another church, find another church. I was programmed to believe that our church was the elite of the elite. So it's like, I can't go anywhere else after that. Everybody else church is boring and they're not, in with God like our community was. But it was nothing for them to move on and do that. I realized, not to say they didn't believe, not to say that they weren't participants, but for me, Nikki opened all the way up. And I believed everything. And I gave all of my power away. So I was an open target to be abused by these leaders. Other people might have still felt a little tinge. And then still maintain some autonomy. And usually those type of people are the ones in the back of the pews. They come, they're not committed, but the ones that are really committed, they get it the most. So hopefully that answered your question, Melissa.
I think that's a great response because I think there is a spectrum. I would totally agree with you on that. And one thing that people don't realize, which is fascinating, is that even the pastors or clergy or whatever are usually suffering from spiritual abuse as well.
Yeah.
Because they're held to a certain standard or they're getting called out even within staffs and stuff like that. And so it's so rampant.
It's a system problem. If they haven't been through it themselves, they're with other people, that enable. So, that enable them, that encourage them to continue to do this to people and not even break a sweat about it and not even think that there's anything wrong with doing such a thing. So, I'm not going to get fully into this because it's a big topic, but I've had rooms on Clubhouse where we talked about the new apostolic reformation movement. And one day, I don't know how, I would love to unpack that because a lot of spiritual abuse survivors are in that form of evangelicalism where there's the apostles and the prophets are at the top, and they have their crew, and then they are over other people and they tell people, God told me to tell you this and God told me to tell you that. And they say you need to have spiritual parents, so you need to come up under these leaders in order for your life to actually go far and succeed. And the whole structure in it of itself. Oh, we're breaking up. Can you hear me?
I
Can you
can.
hear me still? Okay, I thought we broke up. But the whole structure itself is just it's disgusting, and it just reeks spiritual abuse. And there are people like I know personally, they can't even come out their houses. They're that jacked up, and I'm not exaggerating. It's
Mm.
spiritual abuse, religious trauma goes to the very core of someone's being, and it is a lot of layers to process, heal, and recover in order to keep going forward.
Totally. There was another comment says they don't know that they're a victim, just regurgitating information. I believe she was.
Mm-hmm.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. You're speaking about even the pastors or the clergy or whatever have you, and it is. It's a wicked thing that goes on. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it flies under the radar because everybody thinks it's normal. I think within
Right.
that. So let me ask you this: if someone has suffered from spiritual abuse or religious trauma in the past, what should be their first steps?
Well, I kind of shared that already. Kind of the acceptance of what you've
Right.
been through, educating yourself, and again, you have to process a lot of these emotions. You have to process the shame. There's loads of shame on a religious trauma survivor, and not because it's their fault, but they've been indoctrinated to believe that they're less than. They've been, they've felt inferior to their leaders and people that are around them. There's so many things to just put the shame coat, put another shame coat. Next thing you know, it's like, where are they? They're under all of this pile of shame, and they're trying to have a relationship with a partner, have a relationship at a place of employment, have a relationship in society, and they can't because they have a pile of shame coats, if you will, that someone threw on top of them over and over and over again. And then if they had their relationship with God, they heard shame that way too, because the leadership, taught messages that just constantly did that. And so they feel like they're a failure, and you have to process that. You have to process, what does your life look like now? Not so much your job, if you're going to date somebody, what does your faith look like now? Do you want to hold on to your faith? Do Can you still hear me? Okay. Do you want to hold on to your faith? Do you want to find another path? Are you going to deconstruct your experience only, or deconstruct the faith altogether? You have to start asking yourself questions that in the system you were encouraged to not question. In the system, you were encouraged to not process. You were encouraged to follow the leader and the leaders only, because the leaders equate themselves being next to God. And so even if you don't believe that in the beginning, it starts to sink in. And so that whole don't ask, don't tell, you have that within yourself. A lot of survivors gaslight themselves,
Yeah.
because they've been used to the leaders gaslighting them and spiritually bypassing reality. So it's something that they take with their journey unless they become conscious of it. And that has to be worked out. Not to fear holding something and looking at it. What do I think about this now? And sometimes you may not be ready to touch it, and that's okay. You put it in your back pocket and you keep moving. It could be a year later. You know what? It's time. Let me pull that out. I'm not going to go like this and hide from it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to touch it. I'm going to feel it so that I can determine what side of the street I want to be on. No more being in the middle of the street with cognitive dissonance, because that was the old way. Now I want to learn what I feel and what I like and what I believe. And I mean, you can do that by yourself. I did a lot of that by myself because I didn't have a choice. But it's so much better when you have a coach like Brad or some of the other people we follow, or myself if you want. You find someone that you can trust, someone that's been there, and you can process a lot of these emotions. And it's a long journey. I'm pretty sure people can understand unpacking all of this. It's a long journey. However, there's so much sometimes the way it's presented, it seems very anonymous. It's like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I don't know, that just, can I just forget about it? I mean, like, it's been 5 years, I'm all right, I have a healthy sex life, I'm going out, I'm enjoying my life, I don't want to deal with that. But it's gonna keep coming up. It's there, it's in there. And so, because it seems like this journey is just gonna be so hard, I want to turn the page and reframe that for survivors. If you take this journey, if you take this path, whichever way you do, with a coach, with a therapist, by yourself, there is beauty on the other side of this. And I'm pretty sure Brad can attest to this. There is beauty. You get to reframe things. You get to really resonate with what you believe and not just what somebody told you and passed down to you. You get to learn yourself. In a lot of the cults and all my journeys that I was in, one of the things I realized, I did not love Nikki. I didn't even know who the hell Nikki was. And it was in this season, though it was so lonely, the most loneliest I've been in my entire life. But it was in this season where I found myself. I started to find what I like about Nikki, what I didn't like about Nikki. Then I went from, all right, I like you, you all right, to then, like, I want to hang out with you. Let's step this up. Then it's like, I love you, Nikki. I love the inner child in you. I love the part that did not know, that didn't see. I love the part of you that likes to take risks. And some of those risks didn't always pan out, but that's still in you. I started to love myself. These are the beautiful parts of the journey if you do the work. And no one can force you. It's something that you have to come to conclusion for yourself. But if you do it, yeah, it's gonna be hard. Yeah, it's a little time, but there is beauty on the other side. So,
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Because I resonate so much with what you said because I think the most difficult time for me when I left was learning to trust myself because you're taught not to trust yourself, right? And
mm-hmm.
to trust somebody else and what they tell you. And so trust yourself and not pushing those feelings back, but allowing myself to feel those feelings of shame or when I've been gaslit or whatever have you, and then start that journey to walk through it because I love myself.
Right.
To love myself. So I love exactly everything you just said there. Dynamite. So let me ask you this then. What as a life coach, what are your key areas of focus? Like what do you cover like broadly, or are you pretty narrowed in on a certain thing, or what's your business about?
Well, one of the greatest services that I think, not because of what I'm doing, but I love it personally, is I have a service where it's a one-on-one coaching and mentorship program. So it's a 7-week container. And I get a chance to sit with the potential client, really hear their story, start to pull out certain themes about their story. Okay, I see this, I see this, I see this. And then we come to an agreement, and it's a custom made topics of what the survivor needs to hit. We work together we come up with that, and then it is very interactive. We go deep. But one of the main things I love to present, whether it's in that service or I have many coaching packages, services, or just one-on-ones, I love to help survivors find their autonomy and find their personal power and their choice and their voice. Even those who decide, I want to still be in the religion, I still want to maintain my faith, but I want to be healthier in the environments that I go in. So, okay, that sounds great. How do we do that? What's your church type? Do you have a church type? You know how we have a dating type? Okay, I like tall, dark, and handsome, or I like them this, I like them bald, I like them with a beard, I like them. What is your church type if you want to continue to maintain going to church? And it doesn't have to be just church. It can be, any type of spiritual community or religion, but you have to start working through what you like and why do you like it. I'll give you an example. Part of the reason why I was in the type of cults I was in, I had religious addiction. So I had a heavy religious addiction. That's a whole nother live for another day, what that looks like. But I was the type of person, I liked the type of communities that were hard and fiery and intensive. And, am I breaking up? I still feel like I'm breaking up. You
Uh,
good?
you aren't to me, but
Okay, good. Okay. But I liked communities where everything was fiery and expressive and demonstrative and let's go, and everybody's, no one's sitting down. I like the pastors to take somebody's hand and smack it on their head and say, God said. And so I had to start looking at the type of churches I was dating. And looking at the similarities and the blueprint of what I was dating and looking at the results and saying,
mm,
that church type that I have, I don't know if that's what I need.
mm.
And then learning to recalibrate and find out what Nikki needs, having a relationship with myself so that I can, and sometimes for some people that maintain going back to church, you might have to change your type because your type may be a toxic type. And learning what that looks like, and processing that out. So I like to help survivors find their power, deal with their choice, and being able to make choices again, and actually really looking at the type of places they're going to and what does boundaries look like now if you're going to go back into these spaces. What do your personal boundaries look like? What are you going to look? Are you going to suppress the red flags? Are you going to pay attention to them? And even though it might be your type, you know how sometimes we get attracted dating wise? Oh, that's my type. He looks so good. She looks so good, but I know they're not good for me. Well, how come we don't do that with spiritual communities? hmm
Yeah.
And so I like to help survivors process that out themselves. And the third thing I would say is I love to be a shame lifter. I love to help them take off those coats of shame that people and the system and the texts and the experiences have placed on them. And once they take those coats off, underneath they find that there's a wisdom box that was already inside of them before any of these experiences, and it's them. And the answers are inside of them. The wisdom is inside of them. So I'm not pointing them to me. I'm pointing them to themselves. And for some survivors, this is the first time they've ever experienced something like this. So those things I really love to do.
Music to my ears. I,
I
I, I
know.
you know what I love about you and the way you do coaching, is, and I try to do this as well, but hearing you say it is so beautifully put, or the way you say it. So is the fact that you're not there to change them or direct them in a certain direction. You're allowing them to become themselves,
Right.
being comfortable with themselves, being proud of themselves, finding that wisdom within, if you will. And it's not like they're saying, hey, you need to become an atheist or an agnostic or anything like that. You're just trying to help them heal and where
Right.
they're going to end up.
Right.
And
Because go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
I
Brad.
just love it. That's the way I do mine as well. That when they enter a coaching with you, they know that they're safe to be themselves, uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
discover what they like and they don't like. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I, that's a safe place. So anybody listening, understand that's incredibly important in what Nikki does, because she allows you to grow in yourself or become more you and discover you without any kind of pre-understanding or determined pressure to be a certain way or not. And so I just think that's dynamite. So
Like even the word in, I'm sorry.
no, go on. You're good.
Even the word influence. I don't even necessarily want to influence my clients. I want to encourage my clients. They
Yeah.
have been influenced and it has abused them. They have been taken choice away from them. They have been manipulated. Their reality has been twisted. It is a miracle, if you will, that they even want to sit in front of someone else to help them unpack after what they've been through.
Huge step.
I recognize that.
Huge step. Huge
Right. So it's a precious thing when someone says, hey, I want to coach with you. I want to work with you. I don't take it lightly. Yes, people, we have businesses, and that's an honorable thing. There's nothing wrong with it, but I want to be so close to the pulse of what happened with my story that I understand it's an honor when they choose to come and sit with us and work their stuff out. And I also realize everybody's path is different. There will be 1,000 paths that people take when they come out of these type of experiences. It is not my job to superimpose what I think they should do. They have to find their self and come home to self. I'm just a light bulb to say, is it that way? Is it that way? You lead out. They're driving the car. I'm in the front seat. Where are we going today? That's what it should be like, because at the end of the day, one of the most precious things to every human being is their own will. And someone coming in and taking that will and dragging it around, WILL, not wheel, but dragging it around, that takes away their autonomy. And I know what that feels like, and I don't want to do that to other people. And so that's kind of just the vibe of how I coach. Yeah.
Love it. So we're coming up on an hour almost here.
Okay.
Great. And I feel like I could ask you questions and talk to you all day.
Mm-hmm.
But for everybody that's watching, everybody that will be watching, what's the best way to find and follow you on your journey?
Okay.
About coaching and having the opportunity to have you as a coach.
Right. IG, my Instagram account, Nikki_G_speaks. My website is under construction, so NikkiGspeaks.com. You can still put your email in, and you'll get some updates shortly. We're almost at the tail end of the construction of the website. Also, for people that are on, if you want to hear me yap like this for free, you're welcome to come along on Clubhouse. We have rooms on Sundays at 3:30 Eastern on Clubhouse, and we also have rooms now on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. And we talk about topics from narcissistic family systems, narcissistic abuse. We talk about religious trauma syndrome. We talk about cults. We talk about what a cult leader looks like. We talk about recovery. We share healing tips and resources. People in the audience, they listen to me yap for a little bit, as well as the other two leaders of the club. And then everybody comes up on stage by choice, and they share their stories. And we've had atheists in that room. We've had pastors in that room. We've had people who call themselves prophets and apostles to come in that room. We have people who are still in the faith, people who are in church, people who have left the church, and we want to honor everybody's story. That's the vibe that we set. So my information about Clubhouse and everything will be on my Instagram account, so you can check it out. DM me if you have any questions. I am seeing clients right now. You can DM me, and then I'll send you my calendar, because I'm just finishing up my school journey with trauma recovery coaching. And so I had to hold off with the clients for a little bit. But I am back up and running to take more clients. And I'm also working with an organization called Tears of Eden. And their, I think, handle on Instagram is Uncertain Podcast. You can go on my page and you'll find I've been posting a lot of that, because this month is Spiritual Abuse Awareness Month. So I have just became a part of their board of directors. And so I'm excited. We'll be doing a lot of great work to help survivors. And that's more for people who have come out of the evangelical world. But there's no specific path. This is not, just if you want to remain in church, if you are left the church, wherever you are, you're welcome with that organization. And in the spring, I will be starting some support groups. A small amount, but some support groups so that people can actually share their stories in a container where it's safe and be empowered with other survivors. I won't be teaching, but I'll be facilitating and actually helping people, because it's in community we got wounded, but finding community that's not perfect, but what does it look like to be in healthy relationships, healthy communities? And we're going to have to put ourselves out there sometimes to do that. And that's what I'm learning. A lot of survivors just want to be heard, no one hears them who understands what they've been through. So look out for that. If you sign up at nikkigspeaks.com, put your email in. I'll be sending out some emails regarding the dates for the support group. So,
Wow,
yeah.
amazing.
hmm
You're not busy at all, are you?
Oh, I am ultra busy, but I love it. I love what I'm doing. So,
Uh,
hmm
I need to turn my sarcasm font on. So let me congratulate you on being on the board.
thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations on that. So anybody that is listening or will listen to this IG Live, obviously Nikki is dynamic. She knows where you're coming from. She's relatable and well educated as well. And I have to say this: your hair is amazing, on point. As
Oh, thank you.
I
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
our
you.
hair designer and planner is here. Uh,
Yes, that's my good friend Brian. I got my friend Shamika in here. She's a spiritual abuse survivor. She's written a book. You can check her out. I've had published measures. So a
yeah,
lot of people that I love and connect with in here. So
yeah, and they
hmm
also that is great to see, and that's a true testament of somebody that is coaching when their people show up like this. I mean,
hmm
more love. So that being said, if anybody's on here from my clan or whatever have you, from followers or whoever they are, the bald, the goateed, please check out Nikki on Nikki's page and check out all the things that she's doing, and she is amazing. I have learned so much from her just by going to her page and checking out her podcasts, and when she's on podcasts, that it's like drinking from a water fountain. Not a water fountain, I'm sorry, a hose, right?
Fire hydrant.
Uh, yeah, it's like getting shot with all this information. So I
Yes, yes.
really, really, really do appreciate you and what you're doing. And there will never be a time that you are not needed, because unfortunately, the church, I don't want to say fortunately, unfortunately, the abuse within the church is not going away
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
anytime soon, if possibly ever. So, um,
And it's not just the church either. You know, we're talking about religious trauma, but I also talk a lot about spiritual abuse because it's happening in the Islamic faith, it's happening in the yoga community, in the psychedelic community, in the New Age community. There's a lot of these spiritual abusive practices that are going on, and so you're right, it's not going away within the church and other spiritual communities. So people that may watch this later or have come on the live, if this is the work you do and you feel like I'm not getting clients, I'm not being seen, just know that there are more people out there who are survivors that are looking for us than we are looking for clients. So don't give up. Keep going forward, because I know when I went through all this, I couldn't find anybody. Now, another place of reference, the International Cultic Studies Association, the ICSA. Please tag and plug into that group, the ICSA. I'm a member of that organization. It helped me tremendously when I first came out. They
mm,
talk about spiritual abuse and cultic communities. So, you know, the work is definitely out there, but you know, we need more people helping out. So, Brad, I love what you're doing. I love how you highlight the people that are doing this work. Not too many people would do what you're doing. You know, it's like, nope, this is my stuff. I'm doing my lives. I'm not going to highlight other people, but that shows how much you care about survivors getting the help that they need. And whether that means it's from you, from someone else, your heart is after survivors. And I honor that and appreciate that as well.
well, thank you, because I do want people to get help wherever, and unfortunately, to be honest with you, there's so many abuse survivors, spiritual or physical or anything, that haven't come forward, um, that we need to have as many options for them as available, that hopefully they will. And
Absolutely.
so once again, Nikki, I'm the one that's honored to have you on here today. For all those listening, will listen, please. I'm almost like begging you, go page, listen to what she has to say, because I can promise you this: you'll find a safe environment and a loving person that will walk with you. And so, that being said, thank you again, Nikki, for being
Thank
here.
you, Brad. I appreciate you and everybody that showed up. I see some people in there. Hey, Hugh. But thank you so much and keep doing the work that you're doing. And my DMs are open if anyone wants to unpack some of this. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I hope everyone has a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this from. So, thank you, Nick.
bye.
Bye bye.